And I stood up with the notebook and the pen, and I realized that I had all the answers in my mind. But more than having all the answers, it was the feeling that there were no more questions, because these answers I could not verbalize the answers. Okay, I stood up, I threw away the notebook and the pen, and when I looked around me, I saw that everything was breathing with me. The mountains, the sky, even the animals. There were some cows there. They went to where I was. I suddenly found myself surrounded by cows and breathing with everything.
My guest today is AJ Parr. AJ is a journalist who had a near death like experience, after which he spent 30 years doing comparative religion research and has written 20 books on spirituality. More recently, he has been doing independent research on near death experiences and writing books on near death experiences starting last year. Is that correct, AJ?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, last year I published my first NDE book, and I'm working on two more. And this is a topic that really absorbed me several years ago, and I am really, it became part of my life. When I was a kid, I used to have lucid dreams. I used to have a lot of nightmares. So I used to have nightmares. One of them was I found myself suddenly on the top of a building. It was under construction, and I was afraid of heights. So I practically froze when I found myself on top of those buildings. And one day or one night, I said, "Hey, this looks exactly like the nightmare I've been having." So I said, "Wow, this is a nightmare. I'm dreaming." So when I realized that, I started to change the dream. And I decided I would jump. Okay, if this is a dream, then I'm going to jump. So I jumped. As I fell down, I said, okay, I want to stop falling. I couldn't. So I imagined I had a sofa. And as soon as I imagined it, a sofa appeared and I was sitting. And I said, I want to have a comic book in my hand. And a comic book appeared. So I knew I could control the dream, but not as much as to stop falling. So I continued. When I hit the ground, I'm going to bounce. And that's what it did. The sofa, when it reached the bottom, started bouncing. And then I focused. I tried to wake up, and it was hard, but I concentrated hard, and I learned how to wake up. Okay? Because when you're trying to wake up, the body is really asleep. So it takes a lot of concentration. After doing that, I was 7 years old when I learned how to do that. I continued having nightmares, but I started flying in my dreams. I started having lucid dreams and controlling my dreams. But sometimes I was not aware that I was having a nightmare, and I really got scared. So this continued for years until I was, when I was a bit older, let's say around getting closer to my teens, I started having what they call a sleep paralysis, which is you start waking up in the middle of the night, you're paralyzed. And I started having involuntary out of body experiences. So I would find myself walking in my house, and I suddenly realized I had my eyes closed. And when I tried to open them, I would be back in bed. So that was really scary. I did not want that. So it took me a while to develop a system to stop having them. So uh, I did start meeting spiritual beings when I entered my teens. I had encounters with, I don't know if they were masters or what they were, but I started seeing especially around my 16th, 17th, and 18th birthday. Around there, around that time, I started having in my dreams certain experiences that led me to start researching about dreams and also about different religions. You know, I was against learn. I was against religious theory. I wanted to have a religious experience. So back then, um, I started trying different methods. I remember when I was around 18 or 19 years old, I tried magic mushrooms. And I went to the Andes, tried magic mushrooms, and I had learned how to meditate a few months earlier. And when I took the magic mushrooms, I went by myself next to a river. I did this in the mountain. I sat next to a river and I started meditating with a notebook in my hand and a pen. So I was going to ask, I had a few questions in mind, like, you know, what is the true religion? What is this planet? What are we doing here? And I was 19 years old. I took the magic mushrooms, and all of a sudden, uh, when the thing exploded, I I had my first oneness experience. All of a sudden, I realized that I was part of everything. And I stood up with the notebook and the pen, and I realized that I had all the answers in my mind. But more than having all the answers, it was the feeling that there were no more questions because these answers did not have I could not verbalize the answers. Okay, I stood up, I threw away the notebook and the pen, and when I looked around me, I saw that everything was breathing with me. The mountains, the sky, even the animals. There were some cows there. They went to where I was. I suddenly found myself surrounded by cows and breathing with everything. That was really impressive. I decided that day to not continue trying magic mushrooms or anything like that. And since I felt I had all the answers, I decided to stop searching. Or I had no need. I didn't even decide it. I had no need. I understood that that was a direct experience with God or with reality, and that there was nothing else to look for. So after that, yes, I I continued on. I went on with my life. I went to college, etc. I did have interest in religion, uh, but I would continue with my life. Then, when I was 34 years old, I had this dream. Every once in a while, I would have these amazing dreams. I remember one time this person, I thought he was like a spirit guy, came to me and he explained to me a lot of things about life. And I was saying, wow, everything you're saying makes so much sense. I'm really amazed. Thanks for telling me. And as soon as he finished his explanation, I forgot about it. This was within a dream, okay? So this happened twice in my life. So I knew that dreams were connected with spirituality. And when I was 34 years old, uh, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was completely dark. I couldn't see my hands. I later found that this place is called the void. You don't see anything at all. So when I was there, I said, wow, what is this place? I got scared because I couldn't see and I decided to wake up. So I concentrated. I applied the technique I knew ever since I was a kid. And I said, this must be a nightmare. So I'm going to wake up. So I woke up. The following night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, I looked around. I couldn't see anything. I felt I was still in my bed. But when I tried to see my hands, I could not. And I felt a presence in that dark space or that dark void. And I really got scared. So I concentrated again and I escaped. The third night, it happened again. This was These were 3 nights in a row. So the third night, when I found myself in that darkness and I felt that presence, and I was about to leave, I heard a voice. Now, this confirmed that there was someone there actually in that darkness. And it said something like, relax, or don't worry, all is one. And since I had had this oneness experience when I was 18, I said, yeah, okay, all is one. So you must be me talking to myself. I'm going to trust that all is one. So I realized that I was having like a mystical experience. So this was really a really profound experience because it told me I felt scared. And you know, when you feel a sensation of hollowness, or it also appears when you have deep grief, or when you're falling down, or when you're in the car at certain speed and you pass over a bump, you feel this sensation in the chest that expands. That's the same sensation I was feeling that I thought it was fear. But no, it grew as soon as I surrendered. This sensation grew. I'm empty inside and it's growing, but I did not resist. So this grew and it became larger than myself. And it continued to grow than my house, larger than everything. And all of a sudden, I exploded because I suddenly found myself in the middle of what I call a star, or in the middle of the light. This divine light did not blind me. I was there, and at first, I felt I was in the middle of this sun or star or whatever, and I could see up, down, to the right, to the left. I could see in all directions at the same time. When I realized that, I also realized that I could focus on the center of this star, or on each ray, which was projected infinitely. You know, it was amazing. It was infinite in all directions. And also, each ray of light was surrounded by empty space because it occupied the space. So between one ray and the other ray, there was a little empty space. So I felt I was the light. I felt hollow and full at the same time, and I felt a bliss. I felt that I was all. And I understood later that when you say you feel love, you feel uh, unlimited love, it's because love, when you feel love, is when you feel that you and the person or the object you love are one. So that feeling of oneness is love. Also, it's a feeling of wisdom. It's the feeling of peace. There were so many things involved at the same time. So I don't know. I was aware of every part of this light, and I don't know how much time I stayed there, but all of a sudden I found myself back in the bed, and I had this memory. I said, what happened? What is this? And I didn't understand, you know. So it was too much to describe, to understand. And when I looked around, I knew I was myself, but I was also everything that surrounded me. So I got up and I went to the wall of my room because I wanted to try, I felt that I had to try this. So I put my hand against the wall, and I was the hand against the wall, but I was also the wall pressing back against the hand. So I was everything. So I had this consciousness of not being myself only, but also everything that surrounded me. And this stayed with me for several days. This feeling, I would walk, when I walked out the house the next day, I knew that I was the mountain. I felt the same thing I felt the first time when I had this experience of this oneness experience. But this time I had not taken any drug. I was not meditating. I was simply sleeping. Okay, so over the next months, over the next years, I talked to people who apparently had a spiritual life. For example, I knew a Buddhist who's very advanced, and I asked him, "Have you ever had a similar experience?" And I tried to explain, "No." And I asked a lot of people, and no one had a similar experience. So I started. Another thing that happened after that, I had several downloads. I had like it was, I saw this old man. He was so old, but he was in my imagination. Okay, I felt the presence of a very old man. He seemed so old that I kind of felt pity for him, and I started crying. And I practically asked him who he was. And I received like this poem. It was in the beginning, there was one, always one. But the one wanted to play. So he divided himself into two, and he gave number two amnesia. And thus the game began. So that explanation was enough for me. I mean, to me, that was the explanation of all the religions, of the creation of the universe. It was all condensed there. So I said, wow, this was before I started trying to figure out what was going on, before I started asking people from different religions. So I started, for 20 years, I joined different religions, I joined different practices, and I did have, there are several religions that in dreams, you meet the spirit guides and you work with dreams. So I did that. I also joined the Freemasons, and the Freemasons represent one of the, they say so, one of the oldest schools, the Hermetic schools, the schools that are originated supposedly in the ancient Egypt, who followed the teachings of Hermes. So they are called the Hermetic schools. And I read that they had these masters in temples in the dream world. So I did have several contacts, and I did have initiations. I had a lot of teachings in dreams. Nevertheless, I could never really understand who they were, their names. I didn't see Buddha, Krishna. I saw these beings who were supposedly teachers, but couldn't really figure it out. And I continued having lucid dreams. And one day, like 3 or 4 years ago, I'm a journalist, and I started working with this journalist from Spain. She's called Tessa. And one day we were talking about spiritual experiences, and she told me she had had a near-death experience. This was the first person I met who had had a near-death experience, Tessa Romero. And she had written a book. And when I told her, look, I had this experience, woke up in the middle of the night, all was dark, I emerged I appeared in the light. I was the light. I could look up, down, to right, to the left. And she said, wait, I felt the same thing when I died. I said, what? And we became friends and we talked about it a lot. And I said, wow, what you experienced, first time in my life that I hear someone else mentioning that they experienced something similar to what I experienced. And she told me, look, there are other near-death experiencers. She told me that after she had her near-death experience, she started meeting people who had had near-death experiences without even trying. You know, life took her or took them to her life. You know, they started casually meeting, and she told me, look, there are other people who have also had this experience when they die. So I said, wait a minute. I need to find out for myself. I knew there were videos on YouTube, but I said, no, no, no. Okay, I saw some videos. I noticed that near-death experiences are different, but they have commonalities. I read Dr. Raymond Moody's book. He did not mention my experience, but he did talk about the light and all that. So I said, look, I'm going to start researching because I still need to find out what happened to me, you know? And when I started interviewing people, I was shocked by life reviews. I did not experience a life review, but that was really impressive. There were certain things in NDEs that I had never heard about and that were really shocking and transformative, you know. But I did start finding people who had been in the void, this place that is completely dark, and also people who had merged with the light. So I said, wow, finally. And I learned there was a term called near-death like experience. Uh, and I said, well, perhaps that's what I had. I don't know if I died when I was sleeping or not. And I'm not worried about that. But now I know that there is an explanation. People who have not died have also had similar experiences. And I had several contacts with dead people after that. And one of them was my mother. She was in coma for 2 years before she died. So she had a coma, she had a stroke. She fell into a coma and she never woke up. But before she died, I had a dream. And in that dream, she came to me and she told me, look, son, I'm all right. I saw her next to my bed and I said, Mother, what are you doing here? I didn't realize it was a dream. She said, no, no, they gave me permission to come to see you. Who? The angels. And I said, wow, what do you mean? Well, where are you? I mean, right now, I'm living in a place that's between the world of the living and the world of the dead. I am not allowed to cross over because I am in coma. My body is in coma. So I'm not really dead. So they keep me here. They take care of me. These angels have a place for me. They treat me like a queen. And if you develop a dream body, you can come and visit me. And she told me how, you know, it was too complicated. I never managed to do that, to go voluntary and see her. But she told me this. In this place, we are between the world of the living and the world of the dead. This is almost like a dream, but it's spiritual. And I need to wait here until my body dies, and then they will allow me to go to the world of the dead. But this is amazing, and she sort of calmed me down. This was way before I talked to my friend who had had a near-death experience. So I forgot about that dream. I thought it was a dream, and I said, okay, I had this dream. After I started my near-death research and I started writing my book, which was all about heavenly near-death experiences, I remembered my mother's dream and I said, wow, she was talking about this place that people visit when they have near-death experiences. And she gave me like the answer to why people who have near-death experiences see different things. One will see Buddha, the other will see Jesus. My Jesus may have blonde hair, your Jesus may have black hair. Why is that? So the explanation is that since this is very linked with, it is almost part of the dream world, but it's also part of the spiritual world. And I started researching and I read that Carl Jung, he did a study on mystical visions to understand why people, when they have a mystical vision, they see one deity and another one will see another one. And he also studied dreams. And he came to the conclusion that there are archetypes. He called them archetypes, which is, for example, the archetype of Jesus will be seen differently by different people. I will see my own version of Jesus or God or the hero archetype. There are many archetypes, but there are also spiritual archetypes. So my conclusion was, this was more recently, that people have the difference created in near-death experiences are because the archetypes come into play. This means that an angel or Jesus, when he approaches you, since they are beings of light and they are in another frequency, we have to kind of translate everything into our own 3D world. So we will each give a different form, a different shape, a different name to what we see. If we were born during the last 2,000 years, we will say he's Jesus. But what if I had a near-death experience 4,000 years ago and I lived in Egypt? I would say he's Osiris. And if I was in Greece, I probably would say he's Apollo, this loving being that is all light, that seems like the incarnation of God. He has been given many names, and God has been given many names too. We are humans, and we cannot grasp the multidimensional reality that lies beyond this 3D world. So when we try to interpret it or give it a name, we use the terms that we are familiar with. This doesn't mean that Jesus does not exist. He does exist. What this means is that he existed before he was born 2,000 years ago. He has always existed. God has always existed, and since God is abstract and is more like energy, when he takes a shape, that is the Son of God, that is Jesus, or Christ consciousness. I don't know what they call it. It has so many names. Right now, we call it in planet Earth this way, but if there are countless planets in this universe that also have intelligent life, they probably give that being many names. But he is always the God of love, wisdom, peace, the true God. So that was my most important teaching, or the most important lesson that I received after all these years. So now I more or less have an understanding of what happens to me, what happens to other people, and why people who have had near-death experiences, they do not agree on many things. They each have different interpretations. So I call this the Tower of Babel syndrome. The Tower of Babel in the Bible, it's a big tower. When you God, when they were building it, said, okay, I'm going to create different languages so people will stop constructing it. So the Tower of Babel represents our theoric knowledge of God. And what happens once you reach it, once you go up the tower and you reach the top and you have this experience with God, you will come down speaking a different language because the Buddhist will say, hey, he will explain everything in terms of Buddhism. The Christian will say, no, well, I saw Jesus. And the other guy will say, no, I saw this, I saw Krishna, for example. So the, all religions are a reflection of the same truth. They all have the same root, but us humans have given them different names, different characteristics. What Jesus taught is not what they teach, humans teach. He taught that this world is an illusion, that you should have your, you should keep your treasures in heaven and not on this earth. And they all talk about the ego and not confused, not believing that this is a real existence. They talked about spirituality. There is a spiritual life beyond this 3D world, and I believe there are spiritual beings in other dimensions who are helping us, and that we can access them through dreams. Also, visions, meditation. But that's basically my story and my conclusion. I still have not written down this Babel, the Tower of Babel theory. I'm working on it. And I'm working on a book about children's NDEs with Dr. Melvin Morse, who is he's like my mentor on this topic. He was the first NDE researcher that treated kids who had near-death experiences. And I interviewed him and several of his patients. So I'm writing this book because kids, they have not been polluted or contaminated by these ideas of religion. And when they have a near-death experience, they also go to heaven. They also meet Jesus. But when they come back, they use the names that they are familiar with or their parents are familiar with. Okay, so it's really interesting, and I think that it is my calling to explain this because no one has truly explained why near-death experiences are so different yet so alike. So that's basically my mission.
Yeah, you've had an incredible lifetime so far with all of the amazing experiences you've had, and to put them to paper to share with the world is amazing. I really appreciate that. It helps so many. And I'm wondering, is there something special about 3 o'clock in the morning? I've heard that that's a certain witching hour or something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I've heard many stories. I don't know about you, but I've heard other people that at that time something happened. Tell a story about that time. Some people get up at that time at 3 o'clock in the morning and meditate, or they have heard voices. I don't know why, or maybe everything is calm, or maybe it has to do with the dream cycles. Not too sure. I'm not too sure it's exactly 3 o'clock in the morning. It could have been 3:30, it could have been 4, but around that time.
I've been waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning recently, so it was interesting to me to hear you say that as well. And you were talking about how God was this energy being and just by itself and wanted to play and then split. And then I thought, man, what a crazy, amazing, cool experience that we are what God split into and get to experience all of these beautiful places, these beautiful emotions, these relationships, and interacting with each other. Oh my gosh, that really put it into perspective for me that God split and He split into us, and we're the ones, that's how important we are. We're the ones that are getting to play as God.
Right. A lot of people say we are one. This explains it. You know, many spiritual teachings are based that no, you have to learn how to see God in others. You have to realize that we are all one. And this explains why we are all one. If God has unlimited power, then he had the power to be each and every one of us.
So, you talked about a little bit about how this world is an illusion. Would you say when we die, it's like waking up and heaven is more of our true reality?
I think there are several answers to that same question. Our true reality is one. Everything is one. We are that being. That's our true reality. Under this reality, there are several dimensions. I think that near-death experiences take people to the lobby of heaven, the gates of heaven, but not heaven itself. When people get there, they are not allowed to cross over. So they are basically in this place that was described, that my mother described to me. This is a place or a dimension which can be visited by people who have not truly died, or people who have astral projections or out of body experiences, you know. So what lies beyond that escapes my my comprehension. I do not know. I have heard several accounts by mediums who have contacted dead people, and they say they agree with what near-death experiencers say. Also, when someone has a near-death experience, they can see the people who are on the other side. They usually see their grandfathers or grandmother, dead relatives, dead friends. Some of them see like their soul families, and they feel that they know those people from past lives, but they cannot join them. They usually tell them, hey, you have to go back. You cannot, you cannot join us, okay? So apparently those people are in the next dimension that follows this lobby of heaven, which is visited by near-death experiences. So we could say that real reality is God. Underneath, there are there could be zillions of dimensions in which angels and other beings, highly spiritual beings, archangels, and all of them, they exist. And as you get closer to our 3D world, I think you have this 3D world, then I think you have the dream world, then you have the spiritual world, which is where this lobby of heaven exists, because this, and after that, you go to the place where dead people are. Beyond that, I don't know. But I know what people say when they have near-death experiences. They say that some people don't come back. Others come back and reincarnate. Others don't come back. So where do they go? They either go to another planet or to other dimensions. And in the different religions talk about different planes of existence, the astral, the mental, the different planes of existence.
Do you feel like the astral and the mental and those planes of existence are all layers of our earthly existence? And then there's another set of layers possibly in heaven or on the other side?
Yeah, well, I think the layers, if God is all powerful, all possibilities must exist.
That is the perfect answer, right? Because that's the answer ultimately to every question, to every question. So you can't go wrong with that.
Right. I mean, if he can do everything, anything, then everything is possible. You see? Because it's a game, after all. He's playing the game of existence. And if you want to say that there's another Tia in another dimension, why not? What you cannot say is that there isn't, because how do you know? But it's really hard to guess. It's like an insect or an insect trying in the forest trying to describe the forest. No, the insect can only see its own point of view. You know, the little piece of ground that they interact with, but they don't have any notion of what of the clouds of the other planets. No, those things don't, for them, they don't exist.
I like to think of like a fish in the water. The fish doesn't understand the water the way we understand water. And then, so we could be the same. We could be like
Yeah,
a
we
fish
are.
in the
We are
water.
fish in water. In this, our atmosphere is like an ocean of air. But those questions, those are the questions that you need to avoid. Or you can ask yourself those questions, but you do not need to answer them. Why? Because there are religions or philosophies like Buddhism and also Zen Buddhism, which they tell you not to try to understand things intellectually. Do not try to describe life. Do not try to describe love. Do not try to describe water. If you have never tasted water, how can you describe it to someone who has never tasted it? There is no way. If you have never jumped into a swimming pool or a river or a lake, how can you describe that sensation to someone who has never done it? Impossible. So most things, when you eat chocolate, that sensation that you feel, you cannot describe it to anyone unless they also have tried chocolate. So if you think about it, nothing that exists can be described. You say, yeah, a dog. Yeah, but what is a dog? Try to describe it. You can try to describe it using concepts, pre-established concepts that in that they are like hollow words. You know, what is love? Does the word love mean love? No. Does the word water mean water? Can you drink the word water? No. So words are hollow concepts that try to represent reality. But everything we think about reality is an illusion. That's why they say this is an illusion. Because you say, yes, I am Tia, I am a mother, I am American, I live on planet Earth. Those are concepts that you learn, but they are not your true reality. Your true reality is that you are a human being, a mammal, an animal. People don't like to think that way, but you are really not a mammal or an animal, because if you take those words, those are also concepts. But you are alive. So what are you really? You are life itself. You are, and what is life? Life is God. Life is all. Life is that energy that we the abstract energy that fills the universe, is life. Death does not exist as an energy. Death is like a step from this life to another life. And people who have had near-death experiences say that death does not exist. So everything is life. So if we want to describe ourselves, we can only describe ourselves as life, or as consciousness, or as I am. That's why spiritual people say I am, the I am. And there's also another word that has like two interpretations. Is the word being. Being can be a noun, the human being, but being is also a verb. I am being. So we are being, not a noun, not the noun being, but the action of being, the verb. If you ask what is God, the answer is not a noun. The answer would be being, existence, life. But it's very complex. What the masters recommend is to try not to solve intellectually these mysteries. Instead of that, try to be present, try to be mindful, and experience this act of being. And that will stop your mind. It's like when you drink water, if you concentrate on the sensation of water, you're not thinking, you're feeling. Or when you're eating something, or when you have sex, you feel. Your intellectual knowledge doesn't really play anything at that moment. So when you are in contact with reality, or when I was in contact with that light, I really had no thought. I was there. The thoughts came later. When I came back, I started thinking, hey, what was that? But while I was there, I was simply being.
We're coming back after some technical difficulties. AJ, I have found that a lot of people who have had near-death experiences, they also can affect things like computers and electricity and Wi-Fi. Have you noticed that?
Well, yes, look, I'll tell you what happened. I when I had like 3 computers back, every 3 or 4 years I change computer. Okay, so my first laptop, when I was working in Word, the pointer used to skip lines. If I was writing, I had this problem with the cursor. When you place the cursor and you write, okay, I placed the cursor and I started writing, and it suddenly started writing in the middle of another paragraph. So I said, hey, I'm gonna get another computer. When I got my new computer, I thought I would not have that problem anymore, and I continued having that. So since that, I have had 4 different computers, and I always have that same problem. And sometimes I have had technical issues that I have blamed on that. Like I was supposed to give a presentation at Spiritual Awakenings International, and I was in a bad mood, and all of a sudden I lost my connection. But I know that people that I have interviewed have suffered this in more deeper ways. For example, one of these, some people are not able to wear watches because they stop. Some people really have difficulties with their computers. And some people say that when they are walking, the lights on the streets, they blink. And these are people who don't know each other. So I believe in that. I believe that I did not have a near-death experience, so I cannot say that what I have experienced is because of that. But I know that people who have had near-death experiences not only have those type of experiences, but they also have like spontaneous healings. They start reading, they start seeing dead people, they start having premonitory dreams. So something weird happens. Not to all of them, to some of them.
Mhm. It's like a portal opens inside of them or something. They
Yes,
become plugged in.
something like they break this interdimensional barrier. I don't know how to define that, but I do know that it has been studied by different near-death uh, researchers, and that there are many after effects that have been mentioned. That would be an interesting book, to
It
write
would.
exclusively about that.
Are you gonna write it?
Yeah, I'm really busy writing the one about the children's near-death experiences. Now I want to write a second book on heavenly near-death experiences, and I need to write my story sometime. Sometimes I feel that it's not interesting enough since I did not have a near-death experience, but other times I think that I need to write it someday.
I think that it is incredibly interesting and well worthy of being written in a book. Not everybody has had that type of experience, and it has changed your life. Is very powerful and very moving and can be very helpful to others. I think you should create a book about it.
I also think that you're doing a great job, Tia. You've been publishing videos, perhaps one per day for the past month and a half, almost 2 months, and I think you're really doing a great job. And as you mentioned, you feel that it's a calling, and although you are new, you already seem very familiar, and you know, you have a lot of followers. You also recently were named head of one of the IANS groups.
I'm new to the public eye, but I've been studying near-death experiences for 20 years, and I've met Dr. Moody. I spent the day in his home with him, and so I've been in it, but on the sidelines for many, many years. Is there anything else that you would like to share with my viewers?
If they want more information, they can watch my channel, uh, AJ Parr, spiritual journalist channel, and also they can check out my book on Amazon. It's called Stairway to Heaven: 25 Near-Death Experiences about Encounters with God, Jesus, or Paradise. And what I did there, I did a study. I found 9 commonalities. And, well, it's available in Amazon.
Wonderful. And I didn't mention, and I wanted to mention that AJ has a pretty big YouTube channel with lots of information on it for anyone who's looking for more resources on near-death experiences. So his YouTube channel, I'll link all that below, and you can just click on the link and be able to find him. And AJ, it's been such a blessing to me to have you on today. I really enjoyed talking to you and hearing about your experience and all of the research that you've done. You are a great gift to the near death experience and just spiritual in general communities. So thank you for all that you've done.
Well, thank you, and it was an honor to be here with you.
Thank you. I wish you the very best in everything.
Same here.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. So let's all spread the word, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.